Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. Rocket Tranquility, we copy you on the ground.
New possibilities are opening up for scientific cooperation between countries.
2, 1, 0. Liftoff. American return to space as Discovery clears the tower. Discovery, go and throttle up. Discovery Roger, go for deploy. Everybody in the shuttle program, the crew is go for launch. Roger, nice to be in orbit. We have followed in their footsteps to get us where we are today.
And there it is. You're looking at the American-made rocket and spacecraft that will return American astronauts to the International Space Station from American soil for the first time since the retirement of the space shuttle, last flown nearly 9 years ago. Today, we're giving it another shot with our partners at SpaceX. Wednesday's first attempt was postponed due to that wild weather. But if all goes well today, we will mark a new first in NASA's storied history and usher in the commercial crew era of American spaceflight.
At 3:32 Eastern Time this afternoon, NASA astronauts Doug Hurley and Bob Behnken are expected to lift off from Pad 39A aboard SpaceX's Crew Dragon spacecraft atop a Falcon 9 rocket. If the weather cooperates, today's attempt will mark SpaceX's first ever flight with crew and the beginning of a new chapter in human spaceflight.
Good afternoon and welcome back to Kennedy Space Center, home of the wild Florida weather, which is why we're sitting inside again today, but this time a little bit closer with some plexiglass between us.
Yes, and I'm Lauren Lyons, a senior Starlink development engineer at SpaceX, and joining us today is retired astronaut and NASA meatball lover, Leland.
Thank you, Lauren and Marie. It's great to be back. That weather was really wild last what, 2 days ago, 3 days ago?
Yes, it feels like yesterday. I don't know if depending on how much you slept, could be the same day.
I didn't sleep
think
much.
It was Wednesday.
But down to T minus 17, and our teams made the right call. You know, we didn't want to go through that weather and have something happen. And I think that, you know, we're back to this hollowed ground thing, Pad 39A. We are, you know, my time back there was in 2008, 2009 on Space Shuttle Atlantis, launching to the International Space Station and building out the International Space Station. So now Doug and Bob can launch Crew Dragon and go to an assembly complete space station.
Yeah, and I know it's been really touch and go with the weather. We were looking at it last night. We're looking at it this morning. The teams are going to continue to monitor things. So it's kind of touch and go. But at last check, it was a 50-50 chance. So hopefully those odds are going to be, I don't know if they're going to improve, but 50-50 is not bad. It could be worse, right? So we have teams all over the country covering the action from SpaceX headquarters in California, Mission Control in Houston, and our social media desk in Washington, of course, right here in Florida.
Today's mission will be Crew Dragon's second test flight and its first test with humans on board. We're a little more than 4 hours away from liftoff. Bob and Doug have had their lunch and have completed their medical checks in advance of launch. In about 15 minutes, NASA is going to turn the crew over to the SpaceX team. And once that happens, there are a series of key milestones to complete as we count down to T0. The first one is suit up. Now, the suit up room is located in NASA's Neil Armstrong Operations and Checkout Building, or the ONC. Here, the SpaceX team is going to help the astronauts put on their suits and perform key suit checkouts. From there, the next step is crew walkout. We're going to leave the ONC building for final goodbyes with friends and family gathered outside of the facility before they head out to the launch pad.
And following final goodbyes, the crew will get in a Tesla and begin the roughly 20-minute drive to Pad 39A. Now, once at the pad, the crew will ascend the fixed service structure in order to board the spacecraft in a process we call crew ingress. During ingress, the SpaceX team will run a series of checks to ensure the suits, seats, and the vehicle interactions are all functioning properly.
And after all the vehicle and crew checkouts are completed, the SpaceX closeout team will close Dragon's hatch with Bob and Doug safe inside. About 40 minutes before launch, the crew access arm, which is that long suspended walkway that the astronauts are going to use to board Dragon, it's going to retract away, followed by the arming of the launch escape system.
Once the arm is retracted and the escape system is armed, that's when propellant loading on the Falcon 9 rocket will begin. About 5 minutes before liftoff, Dragon will be configured for what we call terminal count. This is when Dragon's onboard computers take control of the vehicle.
And at T0, again, a little over 4 hours from now, if all goes well and the weather cooperates, Crew Dragon and Falcon 9 will lift off from Pad 39A, carrying astronauts Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley. Roughly 12 minutes after liftoff, Dragon will separate from Falcon 9's second stage, enter its activation phase, and begin using its own onboard propulsion system to carry Bob and Doug to their destination, which is the International Space Station. And as I mentioned previously, Bob and Doug are just finishing up their lunch, and we are currently awaiting their arrival to the suit-up room.
And while we await that, you will notice over the course of this broadcast that we do not have crowds gathered here at Kennedy Space Center. And that, of course, is one of the impacts of our protocols to protect each other and our teams. We would normally have tens of thousands of guests here at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida to view the launch. But even though we couldn't host a lot of guests here, you can still join us through every step of this historic mission from wherever you are. We have a team dedicated to those of you following along on social media, and NASA's Tahira Allen is in Washington right now leading that effort. Hi, Tahira.
Hey, Marie, and hey, everyone out there. My name is Tahira Allen, and if you are one of the 4.9 million people tuning in on Wednesday, we are so glad to see you here again. If you weren't able to witness the pre-launch activities on Wednesday, you are in luck because I'm here to bring you all the excitement happening on social media around the nation. This is a big day for both NASA and SpaceX, and we are ready for you to be a part of it. We had a lot of This is a big day for both NASA and SpaceX, and we are ready for you to be a part of it. We had a lot of people engaged on Wednesday, so we want to see if we can top that energy today. We will be sharing your photos and thoughts live on air during today's broadcast, so don't hold back and show us how you're getting ready for liftoff. You can join the conversation by using the hashtag LaunchAmerica on NASA's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. I'll be monitoring that hashtag LaunchAmerica all day to highlight your social media posts throughout the show. You'll also be able to engage in social media polls during today's broadcast. And so even if you tuned in before, these are brand new polls, so just head on over to NASA's Twitter to cast those votes. So I know most of you are tuning in from home today, but that doesn't mean you can't get involved in the action. Check out NASA's Instagram and Facebook to find our Launch America augmented reality filters. They place you right at Kennedy Space Center, and you can actually see the Falcon 9 rocket lift off in a pair of sunglasses. If you haven't already, be sure to check out our first ever global NASA social. So head on over to NASA's Facebook to join the group. We've got all new social badges, a nice fresh photo here, some Q&As with some very special guests, and also behind the scenes tours of Kennedy Space Center in Florida. And not to mention just an awesome community of people excited to witness this moment. So just right here in training, getting ready for that Launch America. So if you're just tuning in, to get us started, we have a poll for you on Twitter right now. We want to know what NASA logo you are sporting for today's launch, the iconic meatball or the iconic worm. Head on over to NASA's Twitter to cast those votes. And with that, let's head back to Lauren at Kennedy Space Center. Lauren.
Thanks, Tahira. I don't want to sway the vote, but you know, I'm all about that worm.
Meatball.
The debate rages on.
Aside from our debate, the main purpose of today's demonstration mission is to put Crew Dragon through the final operational tests to officially certify the vehicle for human spaceflight. The SpaceX and NASA teams have put years of work in development, testing, and training to get us here today. And now we are just around the corner from seeing Falcon 9, Crew Dragon, and Bob and Doug lift off for the first time, and doing it from that same historic launch pad that first sent humans to the moon more than 50 years ago.
Now, it's really good that we're inside today because I'm still ready to run across there and try to hitch a ride to space on that Crew Dragon. It's a beautiful vehicle what SpaceX and NASA have done together to create this incredible rocket. it makes me want to just run out that door right now and get out there.
Well, you're not allowed to leave today, but Leland, I don't know if you've seen some of the comments on social media. You've been nominated by a lot of followers to fly one of the future missions of Crew Dragon. So I don't know.
Yeah, let's do that. Okay.
So we are just about 3 miles from Launch Complex 39A. Leland, don't get any ideas. I know that's not that far. That's where liftoff will happen in a little over 4 hours. And so we want to check in now with the team at SpaceX Hawthorne, where NASA's Dan Hewitt and SpaceX's Jesse Anderson are keeping an ear on operations. Good morning, guys.
Hey, good morning, Marie. Thanks so much. First off, hashtag Team Warm. But hello from SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California. My name's Dan Hewitt. We're here for round 2 for this historic launch.
And Dan, we're so glad to have you back here today. Hopefully the weather is working in our favor today. It looks really sunny and nice out there, so fingers crossed. My name is Jesse Anderson, and I'm a lead manufacturing engineer here at SpaceX, and we are so honored to be NASA's partner in returning humans to space from the shores of Kennedy Space Center. 10 years ago, we sent the Dragon that's displayed right behind us on its first orbital demonstration flight. And I speak for all of us here at SpaceX when I say we could not be more excited to finally be sending humans to the International Space Station.
And just as a refresher, today's mission is known as Demonstration Mission 2 or Demo 2. This is going to be the first time a commercially built spacecraft will launch people to the space station. Demo 2 is an end-to-end flight test from launch to docking all the way to splashdown in the Atlantic at the end of their mission. And this is the final test for NASA to certify SpaceX for regular crew flights to the space station. Right now, SpaceX and NASA have teams working together around the country. On the SpaceX side, they have teams at the Cape performing final launch day checkouts as we speak, just to make sure Dragon is healthy and good to go.
At the moment of liftoff, we will transfer authority over Dragon from our firing room in Florida to Mission Control here in Hawthorne. Mission Control will have insight and command of Dragon systems for the entirety of this upcoming mission. And since Dragon is a highly autonomous vehicle, our teams in Mission Control will be continuously monitoring the health and performance of the spacecraft through the entire duration of its journey. That's from liftoff all the way until Dragon splashes back down on Earth.
While there are a number of people on headset here in Mission Control right behind us, the mission director is the one in charge. It's also where the SpaceX Core, which stands for Crew Operations Responsible Engineer, who's essentially the voice talking to astronauts throughout their flight, will reside.
Dragon and Falcon 9 together have years of operational experience, or what we refer to as flight heritage. SpaceX has successfully completed 22 flights of Dragon to and from orbit since 2010, and that includes 21 trips to the International Space Station. And to get us where we are today, not only have we conducted thousands of hours of testing, but we've also enhanced and added a number of safety features to Dragon.
One of the most important safety features on Crew Dragon is the launch escape system. It's a huge advancement in the safety of human spaceflight, and SpaceX was able to demonstrate the system in 2 important tests. The first one coming back in 2015 with the pad abort test, which we're watching some video back from right now. And then a little bit more recently, last January of this year, the in-flight abort test. Dragon's launch escape system is outfitted with 8 Super Draco engines that are integrated directly into the spacecraft body. This enables Dragon to separate from Falcon 9 and carry astronauts to safety in case of an emergency on the launch pad or all the way up to orbit.
And in addition to the launch escape system, SpaceX has completed over 80 parachute tests, which includes nearly 30 tests of just the upgraded Mark III parachutes that's flying on today's vehicle. And that's to ensure a safe landing back on Earth, even in the unlikely event that one of those 4 main parachutes fails.
And we can't forget the significance of our first demonstration mission just last year, which itself was an end-to-end flight test to and from the International Space Station, just no actual humans on board. But now, though, let's go to the one and only SpaceX's principal integration engineer, John Insprucker, for our first status update. John?
Oh, you're so kind, Dan. Good morning from SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California. As Dan said, I'm John Insprucker, and I'll be bringing you status updates throughout today's countdown. We're currently just inside T-minus 4 hours, 9 minutes. Today, as mentioned, is our second launch attempt. The first attempt was scrubbed on the 27th. In that attempt, the team proceeded deep into the countdown, but
Soyuz, and every single space shuttle flight started in that room. And Leland, I know many of us have experienced some form of quarantine over the last several months, but I would imagine that 2 weeks in quarantine in preparation for a space flight is unlike any other time in your life. What were some traditions that took place?
Oh, we would get together and sit down and sometimes tell jokes and try to make the mood a little bit lighter. We would review our notes and things, but we would bring our families in and have a crew meal together with our families, and that was really touching. And it's just card games, different things to get ready for that iconic mission to space.
Absolutely. In many ways, everything prior to this moment was preparation, and everything after this is the mission. And prior to Wednesday's first attempt that we told you about, the suit up room was last used for the final shuttle flight, STS-135, in 2011. And I want to mention one more detail about that mission. We want to show you a picture of the crew from the last American space flight launching from U.S. soil. In the picture, if we can bring it up, you'll see Doug Hurley. There it is, Doug Hurley. He was the pilot for STS-135. He is the commander of Demo 2, the spacecraft commander. Also suiting up for that mission was Chris Ferguson, Sandy Magnus, and Rex Walheim, who we just heard from a few minutes ago. And we are standing by to go into the suit up room. We just passed the T-4 hour mark. So suit up is just beginning now. And there is our first look in the room. There is astronaut Doug Hurley getting into his spacesuit, and he's being helped by one of the suit technicians there. So this is our first look in the room. Again, Doug Hurley, he has flown into space 2 times before. He was the pilot on STS-127 and 135. And there's a wider shot. You can see astronaut Bob Behnken also in view now. Bob is to the right of your screen, and he also flew on 2 shuttle missions. Bob is a native of St. Anne, Missouri. So if you're watching from Missouri, especially St. Anne, wave hi, there's Bob. And Doug is from Appalachian, New York. He was born in Endicott, considers Appalachian his hometown. I know a lot of people there because I'm from there too. So if you're watching from upstate New York, shout out to you there too. This is so cool to see. Leland, this must bring back memories for you.
It does, but it's a little different than when I was suiting up because there were Apollo era lazy boys that were sitting in and leaning back in, and now they're in these really incredible sleek suits, as well as these the seats that are actually the same seats that are in the Crew Dragon vehicle, and that's pretty amazing.
Yes, these seats are basically ground support equipment seats. They're pretty much the same as the ones in the vehicle, as Leland said. So what they're doing right now is strapping the crew into the seats to prepare for the 2 big checkouts that they're doing right now. They're going to do a comms check, a bidirectional comms check, where they're going to check that the microphones that are inside of the helmets that the crew are wearing, that the suit techs can communicate with them bidirectionally. And they'll also do a leak test, which is a pressure test where they'll pressurize the spacesuit. So the suits are much more than just futuristic looking outfits. They do look like they come from a sci-fi movie, but as we described, they're designed to connect directly into Dragon seats to provide communications, cooling, and the ability to pressurize if necessary. A moment ago, you may have seen one of the suit technicians attaching a big white umbilical to the leg of the suit. That is the way in which the communications and the airflow, all of that is happening through that umbilical, which is connected to the seat. So right now, as you can see, the team is getting the crew all buttoned up in their 5-point harnesses and getting ready for those checkouts.
And there's that worm again, Leland, right front and center. How does that make you feel on a spacesuit?
It makes me feel just great, Marie and Lauren. We have a lot of heritage and tradition with the meatball, but I'm able to be a little bit more flexible now. Now that Lauren has beat this worm thing into me. No, but they're getting ready. They're focused. They've had breakfast. They've had chances to talk to friends and family, and it's getting real again. And that 50-50 chance, I'm saying positive on a 50% chance of going. Seeing the suit techs around them with these futuristic looking flight suits versus the white suits that we've had in the past. It's a transitioning from that old legacy to this new era in space travel. And I think working with NASA and SpaceX, working together as one team, it's just like what we do in space, work together as an international team to get things done.
Absolutely. And this group really gets to know each other well too. There's a wave from Doug and a thumbs up. That's so cool to see. I mean, the people in that room get to know Bob and Doug really well because they've rehearsed this so many times. You know, especially the suit techs. The suits are, you know, custom made for each of the astronauts. So I feel like I couldn't even count the number of times they've had like suit fit checks and leak checks and just making sure every detail with the fit and the function is just perfect before they get ready to launch.
And interestingly enough, these suit techs are also the designers of the spacesuit. They've been working with the crew for years as we've been building these suits, their training suits, all of the training events in Hawthorne, where the crew is inside of the Buck, the capsule simulator. This is the team that's been working with them for years. The team that dressed Ripley, which is the ATD, the dummy that flew in demo 1.
So mannequin, right?
Mannequin, Smarty.
The
There's
Smarty.
lots of names for Ripley.
But the point being, they've been with these suits from cradle to grave and have been working so closely with Bob and Doug.
Pressures and making sure everything looks good prior to arming the launch escape system, but not tracking a constraint at the moment. So overall, Dragon's healthy and ready for crew ingress.
Okay, thank you for the update, MD. And this concludes the countdown briefing.
So you just heard in that briefing there, they're continuing to move forward towards launch. And as we have a view of Doug Hurley there adjusting his visor, again, he is the spacecraft commander for Demo 2. And while he continues the suit up process, we want to give you a closer look at the veteran Marine Corps fighter pilot and spaceflight pioneer.
Excited?
Very excited. Yeah, very excited.
Feel ready? Feel pumped?
Oh, yeah, I think we're ready. I think we're certainly ready.
Joining the SpaceX Demo 2 test. He is a Marine Corps colonel and test pilot. He was selected as an astronaut in 2000. He piloted Space Shuttle Endeavour and Atlantis for STS-135, the final space shuttle mission. Introducing NASA astronaut Doug Hurley.
It's a life-changing process in so many ways to fly into space. It's just overwhelming in some respects. Just the sensations, the rumbling, the shaking, the acceleration when the engines shut off and you go from, in the case of the shuttle, you go from 3 Gs to 0 Gs instantaneously and things start floating. And I remember distinctly just thinking, what just happened? To see a rocket launch in person is, it's a pretty emotional event. I remember the first time I saw a shuttle launch and it was amazing. And then when I saw a shuttle launch with my wife on it, that is quite the emotional experience. My name is Doug Hurley, and I'm the spacecraft commander for the Demo 2 mission to the International Space Station. We are doing the first crewed flight for NASA and for SpaceX. So this is the test flight to prove end-to-end from launch to docking to ISS operations and then entry, descent, and landing. This will be the first time the Dragon had a crew on board. And so there's a myriad of objectives we want to achieve for this mission. SpaceX has been responsible for design and essentially making this vehicle what it is. What the astronauts bring to the table is the crew vehicle interface. What would work on orbit, what might not work on orbit, what would definitely work, to be able to just have the entire integrated team that's going to support us getting to and from space station, talking together, working through the challenges that simulators typically throw at you. It was really neat being part of it. It's just been an incredible undertaking to see where we've come just in the last 5 years that Bob and I have been a part of this, and to be, shortly flying to the International Space Station with the Crew Dragon. It overwhelms you to think about how many people have, in some way, shape, or form, touched this program and this vehicle to get us to this point. And we are the lucky ones that get to fly it, but we certainly not for 1 second take for granted the amount of effort that so many other people had to put into this to make it successful.
For Doug personally, he's worked so hard, I mean, through his entire life, to get to where we are right now. As a test pilot, this would be the dream to fly a new vehicle. So it makes me so happy to see that he gets to be part of this mission, the spacecraft commander. I'm just glad to see his hard work and his dreams come true for that.
It's been a long road in a lot of ways for not only us, but certainly for all the folks that work in the Commercial Crew Program, as well as SpaceX, in our case, just working to get to this point. It's been a huge amount of sacrifice and time away from home, but the fruits of our labor are coming to fruition.
We are now getting closer to when we expect to see the crew complete their suit checks and walk out of the Neil Armstrong Operations and Checkout Building.
And before they do, here's an introduction to the Joint Operations Commander for Demo 2, who you see to the left of your screen there, former Air Force flight test engineer, Bob Behnken.
When you go through the launch day preparations, there's a lot of moments that kind of stand out to you. One is the kind of the celebratory piece of it, which is that you're walking out of the suit up room and getting in the vehicle that's going to take you to the launch pad. When you close the hatch, that's really when Doug and I are in the vehicle, and it's our vehicle, and we're really in control of the mission at that point.
Test pilots, their task proved that man could fly into orbit around the Earth and return live and well to talk about it.
There's always a balance of managing risk as you go forward to execute a test point and figuring out a way to collect the data. We hear a sound. Okay, is that sound an expected sound? Or we see a light, is that light an expected light? What's the source of it? Does it sync up with something else that's going on or not? So trying to dissect all of that in real time in your head is, a lot of things happen like that on launching of a vehicle.
From St. Anne, Missouri, he is an Air Force colonel and flight test engineer. He flew aboard Space Shuttle Endeavour twice. Introducing NASA astronaut Bob Behnken.
My career at NASA has kind of spanned a couple of decades at this point. I arrived with the class of 2000. Went through the training program, primarily focused on the space shuttle and the International Space Station, learning those systems. Having launched a couple times on vehicles, the second time was definitely different than the first time. You can feel a little bit guilty of, hey, should I study one more thing? Or is there one more piece of information I should get? Am I really prepared or not? So that's definitely different between where I was on my first flight and where I'm at right now. It's been really interesting, I think, for both my wife and I to have gone through the process of seeing each other launch in space. I've seen her take that risk and had it be in front of her, and I've done that to her. And it's something different about watching a rocket launch when there are people on board. You feel a little bit differently about the pit of your stomach, and I can only tell you it's multiplied significantly when it's somebody that you know, and then somebody, of course, that's a family member. It's even multiplied more.
For me personally, as a spouse, watching everything that Bob has put into this over the last 5 years, the dedication that he's shown, the perseverance is pretty special. For both of us, though, the way our minds work, it won't be until sort of the mission is complete that you have really a chance to savor it and celebrate it. This is a huge accomplishment for an Air Force flight test engineer to be part of the demonstration mission of a brand new vehicle. It's going to be amazing.
Without a partner that has that same appreciation, I think it can be challenging for some folks. There's a lot of work and a lot of time that takes away from family that that my spouse appreciates, and I love her for that. Really, my role on the Demo 2 mission is to make sure that we get this vehicle tested and evaluated so that we can move on to more operational missions at the International Space Station. We've got a lot of objectives on board the vehicle that we need to accomplish to really make sure that it's good to go. We'll make sure all those systems are working during the test flight so that future missions will have them available even if they don't plan to utilize them. Through years of the NASA team helping to share that experience and teaching them the lessons that we've learned by going through this, now there's another capability in the U.S. besides NASA to operate something of this magnitude. When is the last time humans launched on a new vehicle? Certainly on the American side, it's been several decades. Now we're in a time when we've got multiple vehicles under development. It's a great time from a space exploration timeframe just to see all that happening. And it's because of this nurturing of the environment, being able to pull in a wider group of people who can contribute towards a human spaceflight. It's a super cool time. On a deeply personal level, I'm really excited that my son is get a chance to see me launch into space. Being an astronaut has been a little bit of an abstraction thing for him because he's seen me do it in old videos, but he hasn't seen me do it for real. And so I'm excited for him to see this launch. I want to thank the entire Commercial Crew Program team that's worked together to get to this point where we've got vehicles in the launch pad ready to head to the International Space Station.
And here is a live look again inside the suit up room in the Neil Armstrong Operations and Checkout building. We can see now NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine. He's talking to the crew. You won't hear any audio in here. And actually, we had some questions about this Wednesday because people were like, why can't I hear what they're saying? That's by design. It's not a mistake. We are really lucky to be able to show you this video live as they're suiting up, but you don't hear the audio because that's a little bit, we try to give the crew a little bit of privacy. And so being able to talk freely and share really what's on their minds without having to worry about who's listening is part of the reason you don't hear audio in there. But that's Jim Bridenstine there talking to the crew, and it looks like Associate Administrator Jim Morehard is also in the room standing to the right of your screen.
And these are great moments to get a last chance to talk to the senior leadership of NASA as they're about to go off and launch into the cosmos. And I think when you look at how Bob and Doug complement each other, and how these SpaceX suits, they really complement the astronauts too, because they're more form fitted, they're custom made, and this is a moment where they're getting ready to do the real deal. And Lauren, I think the integration of the suit and the vehicle and these seats is just really, really impressive. How y'all at SpaceX did that.
Yeah, the primary purpose of the spacesuit, it's a pressure suit. Now, the Dragon capsule is already pressurized, so even in the vacuum of space, the crew is safe when inside of Dragon. But in the unlikely event of an anomaly that causes the capsule to depressurize, we can actually flow oxygen or nitrox into the suit, and that will keep the astronauts pressurized in flight. So that's its main purpose. So it's that form and function and some style there as well.
And for the kids out there that have 3D printers or have 3D printed, the actual helmets were made by 3D printing. So you could be a spacesuit designer yourself because you already have the skill set, and or fly in space one day if you wanted to.
And I'm curious about what kind of conversation might be going on with them. Looks like it's lighthearted. You can see Doug laughing there. I know that Mr. Bridenstine has said, Bob and Doug, if you want to back out, it's not too late. I would imagine he may have said that again. I know they're ready to go. They're as eager as can be. And it looks like they may have another visitor coming in. Oh no, it looks like the administration passed something there, but
and it's really important. I mean, we've trained for so long. We've gone through the malfunction processes. Now he's doing a selfie.
So, of course, you got to do the selfie. I didn't see them do this on Wednesday, so they were probably kicking themselves when they walked out. Why didn't we do a selfie in there?
I wonder if he has that Instagram filter to put the glasses on. Do you think he has it on?
Well, you can tweet at him and find out.
Yeah, I might have to do that. No, this is a great lighthearted moment. It helps gets the guys in a good frame set mindset to go off in space in a very calm and cool and collected way. I think he's now taking pictures of some of the crew techs, the suit techs and tasks. It's all about bringing the family and the team together. Making everyone feel comfortable on flight day and helping us get to space safely. We all try to do.
And obviously, this is this is a very serious mission. I mean, we don't want to make too much light of it, but Leland, you mentioned Wednesday, and I thought that was a really good point. Why it's important to be able to joke around and keep things light as you're getting ready to go to the launch pad.
Yeah, when I went up on 122 with Rex and we just talked to Rex, we were, in the caravan going over to the launch pad, we were kind of making some jokes, but as we were suiting up, we would look over each other, we get up and high five and we'd say, hey, you're ready? Let's go, let's do this, and it's just, you've already trained, you know how to do this. You've done it many, many times. And so I think it's, that lightheartedness is good, but right when you get in the vehicle, the 3, 2, 1 liftoff, that's when you're ready to go.
And they're the visitors making their way out of the room. And as we mentioned, Doug Hurley and Bob Behnken, I mean, they are two of the finest at what they do. And it's really starting to sink in that the mission is on as you see them in their spacesuits.
And seeing them in these suits has always been so inspiring to me from the first time that I saw them at in Hawthorne at SpaceX headquarters during training. It's kind of like a sci-fi film, but unlike a movie prop, which primarily just needs to look cool, our team designed the suit to maximize safety and functionality while maintaining style. Here are two members of our spacesuits team, Chris Trigg and Maria Sundin, telling us about how the suit came to be.
I think one of the things that was important in the development of the suit was to make it easy to use, something that the crew just has to literally plug in when they sit down, and then the suit kind of takes care of itself from there. So the suit is really kind of one part of the bigger Dragon system. It's really part of the vehicle. So we think of it as kind of a suit seat system. So the seat that the crew is in and the suit are in a lot of ways working together. And so it made sense that we were designing Dragon in-house to also design the suit.
Our spacesuit is completely designed in-house. It's built here in Hawthorne, California, in the same building as the rocket and the capsule. The spacesuit is custom made for each crew member, and that is to optimize the fit for the crew member.
We definitely wanted to innovate and we wanted it to look inspiring, but first and foremost, we wanted it to be safe and reliable. The spacesuit's primary purpose is to protect the crew in the unlikely event that the cabin were to depressurize. But the suit does a number of additional things. It provides cooling and communication to the crew inside of the suit, provides them hearing protection, and the outer layer of the suit is flame resistant, so it provides flame protection as well. When the crew gets in the capsule, they get in their seats and they plug the suit into the umbilical that's attached to the seat. And the umbilical is providing everything that the suit needs. So it provides the avionics or electronics for communications, is providing the air to cool the suit, and then it also provides gas when you need to pressurize the suit. So it's really a single point that lets the suit do all the things that it needs to do. We designed the helmet in-house. The helmet serves a number of different functions. Obviously, it's protecting the crew's head and it's retaining gas like the rest of the suit, but it also houses the microphones as well as the valves that are regulating pressure in the suit. We had to design the gloves so that they would work with the touchscreen. So the gloves also still had to do a number of other things like the rest of the suit. So all of those things had to come together within the glove. It'll be obviously really amazing to see Bob and Doug in their flight suits. And I think one of the things that's cool about the suit is it's not just a piece of hardware. It's not just a suit. It's a very personal thing. It's Bob's suit and it's Doug's suit. And so seeing the two of them in their suits using it in flight will be just a really amazing thing.
And you're looking live at Launch Complex 39A. That is Crew Dragon in the center of your screen, sitting atop a 2-stage Falcon 9 SpaceX rocket that will produce 1.7 million pounds of thrust at liftoff. We are keeping our fingers crossed that the weather cooperates. It's a 50-50 chance. Looks beautiful right now, but there may be some thunderstorms rolling in later, so we're keeping a close eye on the weather. In the meantime, we're going to head west to Hawthorne for an operational update. Dan?
Hey, Marie. We are here in Hawthorne still. The astronauts have a crew training facility that's equipped with both a cockpit simulator and a full-scale Dragon mock-up to conduct simulations both for nominal and off-nominal situations.
And recently, the SpaceX team shared the exact same ISS simulator that the astronauts train on with the public, so you can try your hand at docking the ISS. If you head over to iss-sim.spacex.com, you can try your hand at docking with the space station. And I've tried it once before. It was really difficult. It looks way more. It's more difficult than it actually is, I think.
Yeah, flying in space is really deceiving. Just when you think you're going really slow and everything's okay, the next thing you know, you're careening into the space station. So it's way harder. You have to go way slower than you think. It might take a couple of tries, but it's doable.
Yeah, but you guys should try it and check it out and see if you can do it. So let's check in with John Innsbrucker for a quick update on Dragon and Falcon 9. John?
Well, we're coming up on T-minus 3 hours and 35 minutes. All continues to go well for today's launch. Now on the launch pad, Falcon 9 is powered on. Engine and stage checkouts were performed last night. All of those looked good. Now we're currently pressurizing gas storage vessels on both the first and second stage. And as I like to report, the good news is there's nothing significant to talk about on the rocket right now. Now, on top of Falcon 9 is the Dragon spacecraft. That's being prepared for the crew. The Dragon was pressurized to final flight pressure about an hour ago. We had the support team arrive in the White Room just inside T-minus 4 hours, and we're waiting right now for the crew to walk out of the ONC building, and they should arrive at the pad by about T-minus 3 hours. For the Dragon spacecraft, all systems are also currently go. The Air Force range reports no issues at this time. The range will be maintaining both air and sea space clearance around the launch pad. They also help support things like putting the roadblocks up to prevent access to the hazard areas at both the launch site at 39A and around the Cape. Now, the big question, of course, is the weather. And as I said before, we all talk about it, but it's the one thing we can't do anything about. Weather is 50% probability of good conditions. We are going to be watching for the clouds, lightning, thunderstorms. The sea breeze is not as strong today, and that's going to not help push all of that back over Central Florida. But right now, things are looking good with both Falcon 9 and Dragon as we count down to liftoff. Now, we want to see where you're following today's launch from, so we're going to jump over to Tahira at our social desk.
Thanks, John. So glad to hear that things are at least looking good right now for this launch. Really hope it stays that way. So we just took a look at numbers of viewerships across our social media platforms, and there are now 500,000 of you tuning in for today's broadcast. Welcome, guys. We are so excited to have you. We also have the top cities right now tuning in, and that's Columbia, South Carolina, Houston, Texas, Los Angeles, New York, and Orlando. So it seems like the East Coast is really pulling today's viewership, but hey, last time on Wednesday, California came in and really stole the whole show away. Let's take a look at what's being shared online right now. So right now we have this future astronaut, and I don't know who he had to call, but it looks like he is in this SpaceX suit and his Tesla getting ready for round 2. Absolutely love it. Let's take a second look. Okay, right now we have a French bulldog. It looks like taking Bob's place for launch right now. This is so funny. We'd love to see it, guys. And so for those of you tuning in, be sure to use that hashtag #LaunchAmerica on social media and show us how you're getting ready for liftoff. So earlier in the show, we polled users to see which NASA logo you're sporting for today's launch, and the results are in. So it looks like about 62% of you are wearing the meatball today, and that leaves the worm falling a little bit behind. But hey, now that the worm is back, maybe y'all will be sporting it more often. And so with that, let's head back to Marie at NASA Kennedy. Marie?
Thanks, Tahira. We have some really spirited reactions here. We're looking live at the ONC walkout doors, but I just have to tell you, Leland threw up his arms in the air in victory when he saw more people sporting the meatball, and Lauren looks like someone just kidnapped her dog.
I am shook. Go worm, go worm, go away worm.
Oh, wow. You know, you can't predict, you know, how everyone else feels. That's the beauty of diversity of opinions, you know.
And other traditions like the meatball and the worm, or a card game that we play called Possum's Fargo. And you have to play enough hands to where the commander loses a hand before we can walk out. So that's probably going on right now. And they're getting ready to have Doug lose his hand.
Yes.
And then we can get in the elevator and come out and get in the spaceship.
Yep. So we're giving that them that moment in private. And Leland, I wanted to ask you too, because I know, I mean, we had a scrub really late in the count yesterday. We got just under T minus 17 minutes, and we were all like, oh, it was like a collective groan across the country, everybody watching. And I know you've been through a delay once yourself on one of your shuttle flights. And I wonder, what does it take to kind of refocus yourself on day two? I mean, do you go through all the exact same preparations? Do you do anything a little different? Is there a little bit of superstition involved?
No, not really. I mean, we try to keep everything the same way because we've practiced this way, and now we're in the real day. We're playing this way. So if you stay the same, kind of the same form and function that you've done before, nothing else hopefully will happen that's out of character to your mission. So I think we just try to stay the same way.
Yeah. That's good insight. And I know, Bob and Doug, we heard them on the comms after that as they were detanking Falcon 9, and we were waiting for them to get out of Crew Dragon, and they were just cool, calm, collected, thanking the teams for doing a good job. Nobody's getting launch fever. And, they're going to do the same thing today. No matter how many people are watching, they're going to make the same call as they would if nobody was paying any attention.
Right. And I was talking to CJ Sturkow before I launched on my first mission, and he said that he made a mistake and flipped the wrong switch on Ascent, and he glommed on that and was about to make another mistake. But he said that he had to just focus and get back to, grace under pressure so that he would make a third mistake, which could have been, catastrophic. So that's what we always try to do, is to try to do everything the same way, be very deliberate, but be very graceful, not really try to overthink something, but try to stay safe.
Absolutely.
And calm.
Yeah, that's so key. And I know that's a top of mind for all the SpaceX and NASA teams working on this today. And again, we're just standing by. We expect the crew is going to be leaving the suit up room in just a couple of minutes. So we're giving them those last few minutes in private at the ONC building. And again, we're looking at the pad here. One of the other things that struck me, we watched the videos about Bob and Doug, and when I went home on Wednesday, because people saw, a lot of people who were watching and then, or maybe watching again today, saw the videos about them, learned a little bit about their military background. My husband's a Marine, so he's like super pumped about Doug. Doug tweeted Semper Fi. And so I know like all the Marines out there are like just super pumped about seeing this, and the airmen that are watching Bob, seeing them represent the Air Force. I mean, it's just such a cool moment for our military community. And as a military spouse, I definitely feel some of that pride.
I saw Charlie Bolden last night coming from the restaurant, and he was very excited about Doug as a Marine, and he's a Marine, and so Semper Fi was definitely something he said. Godspeed, Semper Fi, go Crew Dragon. So it's our military people that are helping us with this launch, with recovery, with all these other things, is very important to the success of the mission.
Absolutely. And we want to turn our attention back to the Neil Armstrong Operations and Checkout Building. If we could, we want to take you to a picture of the doors. There they are. Those are the doors at the back of the crew quarters building. And it's an area where family, friends, and members of the media can share one final moment with the crew before launch. Now, the walk through those doors has signaled the beginning of the march towards launch for every American mission to space since 1968. This is the moment that is immortalized on film and video for 400 different astronauts from Apollo all the way through Space Shuttle, serving 150 total missions. And soon, if the weather cooperates, mission number 151 with the first 2 commercial crew astronauts. These doors carry with them a legacy of purpose and action. And today they will announce to all of us the start of this, NASA's SpaceX Demo 2 mission.
And you saw just a little bit of my walkout from STS-129, my last mission. And I remember having my friends and family out there. There was my chemistry teacher that was in the crowd. She got me turned on to science and helped me actually become an astronaut. And I just remember her being in the crowd saying, "Go Leland." And it was just such a memorable moment for me. Kind of got more rocket fuel in my veins, getting me ready for my mission.
Yeah, absolutely. And we were just looking at a live picture outside of the building where we could see some